Welcome back, everybody. This is Dan's Racing and Simulations. Thanks so much for joining in. Today I want to talk about whether or not head tracking is a cheaper alternative to using virtual reality. So in this day and age, everybody knows what virtual reality is, but it's still kind of to the point where it's kind of marginally expensive to use, because not only do you have to purchase the virtual reality headset, whether you want to go with the Vive or the Oculus, whichever one you want to choose, not only do you have to pay for that expense, you also have to have a fairly beefy and somewhat expensive computer to run virtual reality. So I see this a lot. A lot of people are still on the fence on whether or not they want to try virtual reality because you know, it is just kind of not cost efficient to go that route, and eventually the prices will come down, but right now they are still fairly expensive. And for something that you're not 100% sure you're going to like, that's kind of a big bridge to jump off of. So I ran across a conversation. I actually took part in this conversation, but I saw in a Facebook group people were discussing whether or not head tracking is a cheaper alternative to virtual reality. And I have actually had experience with both of these items. Well before I started using virtual reality, I also used head tracking, and in particular I used probably the most well-known head tracking system, and that is called TrackIR, and the particular version that I had was TrackIR 5. Now I think by now they've even got a TrackIR 6 coming out. And it's probably even better than the one that I had, but the particular one that I used was TrackIR 5. And if you don't know what head tracking is, basically any head tracking system works pretty much in the same way. You've got a sensor which mounts on top of your monitor or somewhere in front of you, very similar to the way VR works. And then you've got a clip that clips on a ball cap or some way it clips to your head, and it's got three reflectors shaped in a triangle. And that sensor emits a light, and that light is reflected on all three of those reflectors, which makes this triangle, and then the sensor is able to create that virtual triangle that will tell the computer whether your head is turning left or turning right or turning up or looking down, looking up or down. And so what it does is it mimics the camera motion in game to that sensor on your head. So it is just what it sounds like. It is tracking which way your head is aimed. The thing about head tracking is it is not necessarily tracking your eyes. As a matter of fact, it's not tracking your eyes at all. It is only tracking whether or not you're turning left, turning right, looking up, or looking down. That's about it. So price-wise, head tracking is much less expensive than virtual reality. There's no question that that fact can be argued. When I bought the TrackIR probably 2 or 3 years ago, it was about $150, and even then that's far less expensive than any of the virtual reality headsets available today. And I looked earlier, and you can actually pick up TrackIR if you look around for about $100. So as far as a cheaper method of, or a cheaper option, sure, it is much cheaper to go with the head tracking than it is to go with the virtual reality headset. But the key word here is alternative. Is it a cheaper alternative? So an alternative is something else that gives you the same experience. Now, in that aspect, my answer to is head tracking a cheaper alternative to virtual reality? No, it's not. Because you get two completely different experiences. Virtual reality in a VR headset, it's a very natural experience. You can visually look at things with your eyes. You can move around from side to side. It tracks your forward motion, your rearward motion. You can look all around 360 degrees, and everything moves naturally with you, so much so that it feels like you're actually in that environment. So it's very, very natural, and your body takes to that in a very natural way. That's why virtual reality is so popular. That's why people like it so much, because you feel, especially in a sim racing title, you feel like you're actually in that car. Head tracking doesn't work that way. The biggest problem with head tracking is you have to physically turn your head one way to get the head tracking to work and for it to move what you're seeing on the screen. The problem with that is that when you turn your head to the left, at the same time, you have to actually roll your eyes in the opposite direction to keep looking at the screen. That's the biggest problem that I had with TrackIR. You move your head to the left, and the screen, yes, what you visually see on the screen, it is moving to the left. However, as you're turning your head away from the screen, you're no longer looking at that screen. So what you have to do at the same time is you have to roll your eyes in the opposite direction. So it takes some getting used to, and you can do it after a while. It feels not natural, but you can make it work, I guess. It's basically like a band-aid fix is what I like to call it. But at the end of the day, it's not natural because in reality, you're looking in the opposite direction of what the image is actually moving. TrackIR I used a lot for games like a Euro Truck Simulator and flight sims, because it works well for having to look around the cabin of the truck for various buttons and various things you would have to use. It works really well when you're in a slow flight looking around, say like a Cessna, because you have to find various buttons that are on the dashboard and you know, just placed around the cockpit of the plane. It works well in a slow-paced environment like that. But it does not work well in a sim racing title because you are racing, you're moving very quickly, and it's unnatural to move your head away from what you're looking at to make the head tracking work. So hopefully that makes sense. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is when you're sitting behind a monitor, whether it's a single monitor or a triple monitor setup, when you move your head, everything on the monitor moves. So it's not just visually what you're looking at. If you are racing in a sim racing title and you are holding your force feedback wheel, when you turn your head to make that head tracking work, the on-screen steering wheel and the on-screen dashboard, all that stuff moves in whatever direction you're looking, but the steering wheel in your hand in the real world, the wheel that you're holding on to in reality, it doesn't move. And there's this unnatural balance where the dashboard that you see on the screen and the steering wheel that you see on the screen, if you have the steering wheel turned on, they move, but the steering wheel in your hand doesn't move. And it causes this very unnatural, in some ways dizzying effect, and it actually, in my opinion, it hinders you more than it helps you in a sim racing title. Now again, there are games, there are titles that TrackIR does work if that's your only option, but when it comes down to the question at hand, is head tracking a cheaper alternative to virtual reality? 100% it is not a cheaper alternative. It is cheaper, yes, but it's not an alternative because they're not giving you the same experience. They're two completely different experiences. Virtual reality is very natural. It feels very real, whereas head tracking really does the exact opposite. It's what I like to call a band-aid fix when you can't see enough in your monitor. So that's my take on that. I thought I would make a video on it because I know a lot of people are curious about that. I've heard that many times before, people wondering if they can go the head tracking route. And to be honest with you, I know that they do update TrackIR's program that it comes with and stuff. They update it a lot. I do check from time to time, and it is something you can still purchase, and there is support for it, but TrackIR was something that worked very well about 10 years ago. In today's games, in today's technology, it doesn't really work as well as something like virtual reality. Can you adapt to it? Can you make the head tracking work and adapt it to a current title? Sure you can, but you will not get anywhere near the same experience as you will in virtual reality. So I don't think that is any kind of alternative to virtual reality. If you're going to spend $150, what I would probably do is just save another $150, get the VR headset, and go all in on the real thing, because it's going to be much more enjoyable. You're going to get a much better experience out of it. So anyways, that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to click that subscribe button if you are not subscribed, and I will see you guys in the next video.